Player Profilers first, Reddit AMA of the year. We're answering all of your fantasy football questions. We're answering them right here on Player Profiler YouTube. We're also answering them over on Reddit. So if you're in the YouTube stream now, feel free to get your question on Reddit. And if you're actively participating in the Reddit chat, we're going to answer all of those questions there. So Matt Kelley, the Podfather, we're back. We're back in the Reddit streets. How are you doing today?
We're answering all the questions?
We're answering as many as possible. We're going to start out with Wesley Peterson here, Matt. Now, Wesley, I wish you would have quantified redraft or dynasty. So let's assume redraft here, Matt. Wesley Peterson says, should we send away Garrett Wilson for Brian Thomas Jr. straight up right now? This is an interesting one. What do you say?
I'm worried about this, how Evan Ingram is affecting Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas still a rookie. I'm not going to overreact to this trade. I know that Davante Adams is the default alpha, but the last few weeks, I mean, what have we seen? Like 30-plus targets for Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is a guy that can go out and get 15 targets a game, as is Davante Adams. I think that the targets will consolidate. We're just going to see no Lazard, no Mike Williams, less Tyler Conklin, more Breece Hall, more Davante Adams. And it's possible we just get slightly less targets for Garrett Wilson, but no titanic shift in targets away from Garrett Wilson. And if that's true, then you're not going to want to move on from Garrett Wilson for just a BTJ in a seasonal league. In Dynasty, it's a little bit more of a conversation because it looks like Brian Thomas Jr. is going to have that offense to himself in the years ahead. That's an offense you want to be tied to if you're a wide receiver, more than the Jets offense, which is going to be a dead zone at quarterback for the foreseeable future. But I still prefer Garrett Wilson in all formats.
It's a tough one. I think like my enthusiasm for Brian Thomas Jr. is extremely high. I think it's close though, Matt. I think it's really like a
it's close.
thing. I do think that there's a chance that if you're in very good shape and I'm looking for a guy who can win the fantasy football playoffs for me and put up a number of spike weeks and go nuts, I think it might be Brian Thomas Jr. They're good. The game scripts are going to be strong there. You don't have to deal with the weather. You know that New York's going to play those Aaron Rodgers taking the air out of the football type games down the stretch in the cold weather. You know it's going to happen. Whereas the Jacksonville Jaguars, you're going to get all these YOLO balls to Brian Thomas down the field, potential for a Christian Kirk trade. This is one where I think the ceiling might actually be Brian Thomas Jr., but Matt is probably the more pragmatic answer. So if you're feeling safe, go with Matt. You're feeling risky, go with me. Here's one more from Ruckus.
They play each other week 15.
There you go, Matt. Then we're going to have the Matt Kelley Theo Gremminger Reddit AMA Bowl. We'll call that. Ruckus. Shout out to Ruckus. Very active, always in our chats and on social media at Player Profiler.
By the way, week 16, Jets play the Rams. Do you want me to keep going?
Where's it, in LA?
The Jets play the Rams and the Jaguars in the fantasy playoffs. You want to know who they play week 17?
I do now.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay. The New York Jets play the Buffalo Bills in what is shaping up to be a shootout.
In Buffalo.
In Buffalo.
And it could be a shootout or it could be blustery. We don't know.
And Matt, the Jaguars are going to be at home against the Titans in a game that could be dragged into the mud. Looking at the schedule, I think you have to agree it's got to be Garrett Wilson.
Okay. I will concede. Let's go with Ruckus's question here. This is specifically for this week. Justin Herbert or Anthony Richardson this week. And he also wants to know, he wants you to say Garendo. And everybody knows Matt's pronunciation of Isaac Garendo is just fantastic. But it's Justin Herbert or Anthony Richardson in this week. I'll take that while you want to why don't you queue up your Garendo and I'll take the Anthony Richardson one.
I had no idea this was ever going to be a thing. I just enjoy saying Isaac Garendo. I just like saying it. I don't know why. I like saying it. It rolls off very nicely, and I did not know that the audience would latch onto this. But that's the beauty of being a podcaster, man. You never know when something extemporaneous happens, and then the audience likes it and they want more, and I'm happy. Like I'm absolutely a jukebox. for
Yeah,
the
I
audience.
think
You want more Garendo? I'm happy to give you Garendo.
there you go. I'll say this week, let's be cautious. I don't want to play Nick Chubb this week. I want to see how much volume he handles. The Cincinnati game is
Wouldn't
also
you rather
one.
play Garendo than Chubb?
I might. I think that the Browns offense
Jordan
is literally
Mason in
stuck
a
in the.
sling, Jordan Mason with a non-contact jersey, Jordan Mason getting bounced in the first drive after he gets hit again.
I will say I'm going Anthony Richardson over Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert on the road in Arizona this week. Anthony Richardson coming back. This is a sneaky game for Indianapolis. Indianapolis, like when Richardson went down, he was actually playing pretty well against Pittsburgh, and I know they want him back. Last week was a big setback for the Joe Flacco should start people. Flacco had 2 touchdown passes, but he was very poor. Anthony Richardson, I'm starting him this week. I think he's a high-level QB2 in this matchup that's winnable against the Miami Dolphins. Let's take one more here, Matt, from our YouTube audience, and then we're going to go over to Reddit.
We will, by the way, we are going to go into Reddit, and we are going to respond to those questions on Reddit, right?
Yeah, I'm going to answer.
The people on Reddit, they're not just asking questions into the void, right?
No. I answer when I do a Reddit AMA. Anybody who ever wants to put a question out there, I answer like 90% of them. Some people don't. Every respectful question, and ones that are disrespectful but funny, I'll answer all of them. This is a good one though, Matt. Fun one. You've got Romeo Doubs and the Green Bay Packers going up against the Houston Texans in a potential shootout. You've got Wan'Dale Robinson. You've got so the Wan'Dale is the last one. It's one flex between Pop Douglas, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Romeo Doubs.
Oh, this is very easy. This is very easy. By the way, I disagree with the whole premise of what Jeff Rogers is doing. I don't agree with the. I have a 2-part question.
Well, we got 2 of those. This is people.
I don't like 2-part questions. I disagree with the whole premise. I do a starter stream show every morning. Now, my daughter does have an early soccer match, and it's in New London, which if anyone knows where New London is, it's on the other side of Connecticut from Fairfield. So we have a problem in that I may have to do a 7 a.m. starter stream. And so we're really going to test the audience. How early can they get up with me to do starter streams? And I hate the 2-part questions. I refuse to answer them. I'll answer your first question. Then you got to let someone else in. It's kind of a line cutting move, the 2-part questions. I don't like that from Jeff Rogers. I think he should be ashamed of himself. But what I will say is Pop Douglas is a screaming start. He's my start of the week. We do a start of the week for TikTok. I had Pop Douglas as a start of the week. How could you ever find a better option than this? The guy proved with Drake May that he is the go-to receiver. Now they have the dream matchup going to Jacksonville. This is everything you would ever want. Pop Douglas has like 95th percentile burst. He's super explosive. One of the best things you can have is an explosive slot receiver. They can deliver spike weeks, unlike the Greg Dortch types. Pop Douglas is a completely different type of player. An explosive slot receiver, a slot receiver I can remember from years past. Kenny Stills gave you those spike weeks. He was an explosive slot receiver. They don't come around that often, but when they do, you play him. Pop Douglas, baby. This is the week. Just enjoy your Drake May, nuts. That's really what it is. You flop the nuts with Drake May and Pop Douglas. Go ahead, play him.
So here's a question from Reddit. We had a great question from Chuck Bass, who's actually doing a Sunday pregame. Shout out to Dynasty D-Gens. Shout out to Chuck Bass. Those guys are great. Very
Chuck
quickly,
Bass, hilarious guy.
Have you, Chuck's question is, have you ever considered doing a private label water for Player Profiler, Matt? You do live in Connecticut. You guys have some like springs you could tap into.
No. You don't want to do that.
Why not?
No. There's all these lawsuits about microplastics in my region.
So put them in aluminum bottles. There you go. Aluminum bottles. You avoid the microplastics. BPA free. There you go. That's the
it's not
Player
good.
Profiler
It's not
water.
a good thing.
Player
It's
Profiler
actually
water.
it just to give everybody a little bit of a history lesson. So a lot of munitions and a lot of plastics, Dow Corning, a lot of these types of companies were in Connecticut before they moved elsewhere. But like during the war, things like that, places like Bridgeport, places like New London, that was like the #1 place where they made like nuclear submarines. So Connecticut's an under the radar polluted state.
You guys have, it's like those nice stone fences when you drive around Fairfield County, though. It appears like it would be totally
It looks
clean.
great. No, the
False
facade is
advertising.
amazing, but
False
underneath
advertising.
it, there's like radioactive waste, and there's a lot of stuff. There's actually a really sad story about these women that made watches, and the chemicals that they used to use to make the glow in the dark watch arms, that they would have to paint those on, and it turns out that the chemical to make the glow in the dark paint was toxic, and so there was this whole rash of problems up in the Waterbury area. So there's just all these. My thing is, when you move to a state like I moved to the state of Connecticut, start reading some history books, and then whenever you travel around and go around to different places, you're like, oh, I actually know an interesting story about what happened in this town, and this town's actually interesting. A lot of history out there in the United States.
Absolutely. I know you're a history buff, but we got to concentrate on this week here, Matt. There's a lot of interesting questions in the chat. I saw one question in the chat this week, defense. It was Saints versus Colts. I'm going to go with the Saints at home tonight against Bo Nix on the road. A lot of guys missing for New Orleans. That's a difficult place for a rookie quarterback to play. I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints, but I think the Colts are fine as well. Let's take a Reddit question, Matt. On Reddit, I had one that was really fun. Assuming that Aaron Jones is out in full PPR, Tyrone Tracy, Javonte Williams, or Ray Davis. And I'm thinking that the Ray Davis one has some sort of caveat, like does James Cook play? But I'm not sure about that one. I think this is interesting. For me, I think it's the floor option. Javonte is going to get the usage on the road. He probably catches a couple of passes. It looks awful. He looks awful. But
Thursday night game, 37-point total.
Yeah,
on the road.
It's Tyrone Tracy for me. Tyrone Tracy. I'm gonna go Tyrone Tracy. I want to ride the heater. I made a prediction with you that I think Tyrone Tracy has a 20-point week this week. I think Tyrone Tracy's a guy we want to just back. I know
your Tyrone Tracy, man.
Yeah,
you flopped a Pop Douglas and a Tyrone Tracy. Play them. Enjoy and play them. But if James Cook is out, you're still playing Tyrone Tracy?
If James Cook is out, and James Cook, it's funny, Matt, because it's a turf toe thing. So like this is one where we're gonna have to worry about it every week. Turf toe is one of those things where even if you think you're gonna go, you get setbacks and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Ray Davis had the most touches in a game by a Bills running back this week. I just like Tracy. I just think Tracy, the upside there, and I know Ray Davis was very strong as a receiver this past week. For me, though, I'm going to go with Tracy. I have a feeling it's more of a gut feel where we asked like a Bradley Stalder or an Evan Ringler or Billy Muzio, somebody going through and doing the rankings, and they were like computer brain where I have this person ranked at RB 22 and this person ranked at RB 27 and this person RB 34. Therefore, I will start RB 22. I'm not necessarily like that. I want to go with the range of outcomes here. I want to go with the running back who showed me a lot of juice in back-to-back weeks. Tyrone Tracy's a guy that we love athletically. I'm going to go Tyrone Tracy, even though I love Ray Davis as well. And I think
20 implied points for the Giants. They're at home. This is supposed to be a closer game than it looks on paper. That's interesting. That's the type of game where I'm more likely to take a player like Tracy. It's at home. It's a division rival. It's supposed to be a close game. It could hit the total that 43-point totals, not that crazy. They could go over it, and then it's Tyrone Tracy getting fed. Also, we haven't seen Tyrone Tracy in a starting role with Malik Neighbors, so this offense could really kick into a higher gear. This could be interesting. Tracy all the way.
Okay, here's a fun one. How would we rank? Now, this person meant Tyrone Tracy. They said Tyrone Taylor. Sometimes you're writing on Reddit, it might be on your phone. It's not I can see the typo. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Radium is the glow in the dark element, by the way.
There you go. If we're covered a lot, Matt. Covered a lot. How would you rank Tyrone Tracy if Devin Singletary plays and Tyler Goodson if Jonathan Taylor doesn't? If Devin Singletary plays and Jonathan Taylor sits, I'm actually going with Tyler Goodson
Oh,
in
Goodson
that
all the way,
scenario.
man.
Yeah, I like Goodson.
Yeah, Goodson was pretty efficient, especially in comparison to the slug that is Trey Sermon. Gross, right? So whenever you see these gross running backs like a Zach Moss, you're always just hoping that the team can come to Jesus on one of their slashers, their satellite backs, and like feed them. And so whenever the Browns are like, or well, with Pierre Strong, finally the Browns are thinking, hey, we can unlock Pierre Strong. Bengals unlocking Chase Brown, Goodson. There's all these players we liked coming out of college, right? Oh, this guy was good at Ohio State. This guy was good at Iowa State. Oh, this guy was, pretty interesting at South Dakota State, right? It's just, he has a size. He's actually, 210 pounds like Tyrone Tracy. He has receiving skills, but he was a day 3 pick. Will these franchises take their heads out of their ass? And it's happening, I think, at a faster pace, where a guy like Tyrone Tracy is breaking out faster in the end. They're quicker to come to Jesus a little bit on these running backs. But you knew with a Pierre Strong, for example, that it was going to happen eventually. Someone was eventually going to figure out, hey, we got size and speed here and receiving skills. Just give this guy the ball. And also, it doesn't telegraph to the defense what you're doing. If you put Trey Sermon out there, they know you're going to run the ball, and he's not going to help you in the passing game. So just play Goodson. And teams are doing that more and more. So play Goodson. You should play Goodson too if you need him.
Here's a good one from outwit me on Reddit, and then we're gonna get back to YouTube questions in 1 minute. Do I trust Chubb in his first game back? So it's a Chubb versus Najee Harris, Chase Brown, or Tank Bigsby. This is a tough one, Matt, but I think it's Chase Brown. I love the way he looks recently, and I think that we saw Moss like not that productive, somewhat dealing with some nagging injuries.
Big fumble for Moss. Big fumble.
Yeah, and
all the touches went to Chase Brown after that Moss fumble. That was huge. That was a big deal, man. That's why I would lean Chase Brown as well. Except the guy that we know is getting the touches, lock him in at the running back position, lock in the touches, even though it's inefficient. Najee Harris, but that game, 38-point total.
Jets.
The Steelers are an underdog, so the implied points closer to 15 for that. How many touchdowns? What share of the touchdown equity can you even give to Najee Harris in that case? Even if he's like 1 out of 3 touchdowns go to Najee Harris, even then, what are we talking about? We're talking about like a 10-point ceiling for Najee Harris in these game environments. He's so gross. And Jaylen Warren's going to play. There's probably a higher probability that Jaylen Warren gets more touches because they're going to be playing from behind.
Matt,
yeah. Chase Brown.
And if it looks like I'm like staring off aimlessly, it's because I'm typing into Reddit as I'm broadcasting on YouTube. We've done this.
We're gonna come back to Reddit. We're gonna fill in the gaps in Reddit. Don't worry, Reddit. We're gonna get you. We're gonna get you. There is a question that I want to get to though.
On
from
Reddit,
Tom Gosween. Okay.
In Reddit or YouTube?
He's on. I don't have the ability to share the comment because I'm not.
So read it out, Matt.
It says drop Jalen Wright for Jalen Warren or Tyler Goodson. And I just want to be very clear about this. And I did this on my monologue of the Mind of Mansion podcast. So go to your podcatcher, type in Mind of Mansion, and you can hear my extended thoughts on this. Okay.
Well, here, Gosween's got it right here too. I just put it
right.
up.
Yeah, Gosween. There he is. There he is. Interesting haircut. So poker is the best analogy for this, where, yes, you can take a pot down with third pair. That's what you're looking at with a good Jaylen Warren. Hey, this guy's going to give me something. There's some positive returns in some scenarios, maybe with these guys, but I can get all the money in. I can bankrupt my opponent and win the league if Jalen Wright hits. Jalen Wright is like a flush draw. He's like a straight draw. At this moment in time, the hand has no value, but in future streets, it could take down a huge pot. So invest in yourself and the future earnings of your fantasy team by holding on to Jalen Wright, even if he's not going to score fantasy points right now. You're not losing a lot by not getting those Tyler Goodson points, those Jalen Warren points. I have an expert league team with the FSGA, and I laid out the case for basically stripping all the other positions away, having no bench receivers whatsoever, and just loading up on every single running back that I possibly could. Now I have Garendo, Vidal Sassoon, Jalen Wright, Braylon Allen, Ray Davis. It's like I have the world's fair of running backs on my bench, and everyone in that league has to be afraid that I'm going to get there with the Neighbors and the Amon-Ra's and the Jaden Daniels. But then once I'm in the playoffs, it's going to be these running backs that are going to enter the lineup and take it down.
So I had I'm just answering a couple more of these Reddit questions. Let me get another question up here. I saw a good one. Trade question. Would you trade Amon-Ra for Chase Brown and Puka Nacua? No. I'm holding on to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to absolutely feast this week. This is going to be a shootout type game against Minnesota. Amon-Ra is
even
Amon-Ra.
in Dynasty, you would not do that.
No, I'm not doing this in Dynasty. I'm not doing this in redraft. I'm not doing this in anything. And then even in a weird...
now is the time to go trade for Amon-Ra.
Yes.
Right? Because there's been all this positive game script. They haven't had to put up any points in the passing game. They've just been, hey, lean on David Montgomery, lean on the defense, and we'll blow people out. No problem. Right? But that's not sustainable. Eventually, especially now they've lost Aiden Hutchinson, eventually the Lions are going to have to throw the ball again. And that's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Puka Nacua could have been a one-year wonder. There's been plenty of instances back through time where a player was never able to match their rookie year, especially if it was a late-round pick. That's happened before. It'll happen again. There's a risk there with Puka. There's much less risk longer term that Amon-Ra is fake. Right? I don't think at this point that anyone could say there's much chance that Amon-Ra is fake. There's still a possibility Puka's a little fake.
Puka needs a high number of targets to thrive, whereas in the offense that Amon-Ra's in, he can do it with efficiency, and then he's also going to give you those insanity.
When do you think they're getting rid of Cooper Kupp? You think they're going to move on from Cooper Kupp soon? No.
But I think what
are we talking about here? Again, okay, Larry Fitzgerald played out until like age 35, 36 for the Cardinals. Why won't Kupp do that? Because, Kupp had the hamstring injuries. So did Larry Fitzgerald. In his early 30s, Larry Fitzgerald had all these hamstring injuries, and then he was pretty injury-free for the last 3 or 4 years of his career. And if you wanted him to move on because you had other Cardinals receivers, you couldn't get rid of him. That's going to be a problem for Puka Nacua.
We had a question. Let's take another YouTube question. Thoughts on Deebo Samuel.
Look at this guy.
Versus Mike Evans rest of the season. Trade my Deebo and Bucky / Vidal to get Evans. That seems a little rich. I think that the Bucs offense is just fantastic now, but I don't necessarily think that there's that much of a delta. I mean, I don't know, Matt. This is a difficult one. I like
don't
Deebo. Trade
Vidal Sassoon.
That's it. And I think
don't do that.
I prefer Evans to Deebo rest of season, but it's more it's not like we're talking about going from wide receiver 15 to wide receiver 5.
Debo's getting healthier though.
Debo's
on the upswing. I wouldn't trade Debo right now. That'd be a mistake. They're the same age.
Yeah, locked in.
Debo's maybe a year or two younger.
Big time.
Godwin's the clear alpha now in Tampa. I don't know. I mean, if this was for Godwin, I think this would be an interesting question. I think you'd have to go Godwin here.
Yes, I do.
I would even let Vidal Sassoon go for Godwin, but not for Evans.
Giving up Bucky and Kamani Vidal, aka Vidal Sassoon, which big shout out to Matt Kelley. Let us know in the comments. Do you know what Vidal Sassoon is? Because we made these comments during NFL draft season, and I feel like we kind of dated ourselves because Vidal Sassoon was quite well known years and years ago. How popular is it? Maybe any ladies watching this right now, let us know. But I think you're giving
This
up.
has been quite the week. If anyone's going back and listening to the Mind of Mansion podcast, Dan Williamson and I had a whole back in my day segment where we went all in, and we actually scolded the Gen Zers for their music artists and their movies. The TV shows are fantastic. The TV's never been better, but the music and the movies are shit now. And we let the Gen Zers have it. The millennials in many ways snuck in under the wire because they were able to enjoy the 90s. They understand what good music and good movies looks like. But the Gen Zers are hopeless. So yeah, and Dan and I lived in the greatest generation of music and movies. Gen X, baby. Gen X all the way. We do have a super chat. Uh-oh. Super
okay, I gotta find it.
chat!
I love it. I love it. Here we go. Appreciate that. Right next time for $5. Appreciate you supporting the channel. I have Braylon Allen, Blake Corum, Rico Dowdle, Kendre Miller. Who do I drop? My starting running backs are Derrick Henry and Breece Hall. My roster is full. I would drop Kendre Miller.
Kendre Miller is not going to fire. So there's a lot of running backs that have impressive profiles coming out of college. And as we mentioned before, a lot of them that stick around the league are the later round picks from smaller schools. They're the Vidals, they're the Pierre Strongs, they're the Aaron Joneses. They're the ones that stick around. Oftentimes, the guys that get flushed out are the overrated running backs that come into the league and they just don't want to be there. They were drafted in the second and third round. That Kendre Miller profile, those guys often never fire. Just never fire. And the dead giveaway is all the negativity around them from the coaching staff. It just goes to show they don't really want to be there. Now, if you have like DeAndre Swift level talent, then you can get away with it for a few years. You might even get a second contract. But Kendre Miller ain't no DeAndre Swift. So it's not going to happen for him. I would just let him go. Also, I think this Saints team is starting to show some cracks, starting to show some fraudulence as well. So that's another concern that I have. In general, you want to hoard as many of these guys as possible. Now, I don't know what this guy's agenda is, who he's trying to go pick up. I hope he's trying to go pick up Vidal Sassoon. I hope he's trying to go pick up Gatendo. Those would be great options.
Yeah, I think it's Kendre Miller, and I'm not as pessimistic on Miller as Matt is. I'll just say the one out for Miller, though, Matt, is he's got two old guys in front of him. Kamara's been fantastic. Jamal Williams ahead of him, but there's a chance that you get starts down the stretch. But like you said, the quality of the offense, Jets offense, Rams offense, Cowboys offense, easier to trust than what's going on with the loss of Shaheed in New Orleans right now. And appreciate the super chat. I'm going to take another super chat. Neil McCart going with $2.75, but it's Canadian.
No,
so
I think it was probably like $3.
Yeah, I don't know.
He put in $3 Canadian in it converted.
Okay, so thoughts on Estime? I love that you asked this question, Neil. Audric Estime, I wrote him up this week. He'll also be in on Sleepers, Streamers, and Stashes pod, and also on my Sleepers article on PlayerProfiler.com. I hope you're reading that every week. I know people seem to enjoy that one. But Estime, it's sort of like last week we saw Estime get 2 rushes. One of them was like a 9-yard run. Estime is sort of like everything we saw with Braylon Allen. It's like Braylon Allen light with Estime. He's a big back who's young and explosive. And Matt, Jaleel McLaughlin and Javonte Williams have been very, very poor in their efficiency. So I am in on Audric Estime. I think he's a great guy to stash before the league. If you're in one of those in a Yahoo or ESPN type format, and you, especially if you have a league where you could like cut a guy and pick up a different guy after the game, great one. But Estime, in every sharp league right now, he's rostered. Like high money leagues, people are betting on a potential breakout. We've seen a number of these. Like we talked about this last year, Matt, how this running back class has utility, and we've seen a number of guys sort of flash. Estime is one of them.
Ew.
Your thoughts on Audric Estime?
Ew.
You don't like Estime?
Denver?
Yeah, Audric Estime, though.
I don't like Denver.
So I think he's got more juice than the Javonte. Jared Dean.
I don't think he has more juice than Jaleel McLaughlin.
I think he has more juice than a lot. The way those guys are playing, I think we'll see it. Okay,
I'm not that interested. I mean,
okay, Matt, we'll take a pause.
Listen, I do want to. Let's go back to Reddit. It's important that we look at the first comment on Reddit, this guy was first, my chat account. I want to answer this. This is a very good question. He said, what preseason take do you feel most strongly about, you're happiest about, and the one that you would go back and change? And I have a very easy answer to this because it's all process-based. That's what people want, process-based. The process of going 0 RB this year, because the dead zone was so rich with great talents and perfectly positioned running backs to smash, as well as late round running backs from Roshan Johnson to Blake Corum and everyone in between. The process was dead on. Now you're looking up and you've got an Aaron Jones that got you to this point. Now you've got Tony Pollard. Now you've got Brian Robinson. I know a lot of these guys are hurt, but when they're playing, these guys are delivering 20 fantasy points and these teams are smashing. The dead zone was very alive. It was the best place to go shopping in fantasy football this summer. And so from a team structure standpoint, I feel the most proud about that. The take that I had that was wrong, that was process-based, and it was wrong, was the fate of Nico Collins was based on the fact that when you did the projection math, it didn't make sense. How can you have CJ Stroud at 18 fantasy points a game and yet have Nico and Tank Dell and Diggs and Schultz with ADPs that are, inside like the starters for their position? And with the wide receivers, you have 3 receivers in the top 50. It didn't make sense. The ADP math didn't make sense, but that was similar to the math that I criticize with my poker analogy, where, you just fold that hand because it's a flush draw, a straight draw. Meanwhile, if it hits in a big way. So there are scenarios where if you're chasing the right offense, it actually does make sense to overpay for all the individual pieces, because though the probability that any one of those hits in a big disproportionate way, the fact that it's possible that you could get the undisputed alpha from a Collins, a Diggs, or a Dell, and then when you look at their profiles, one guy's 30 years old, he's going to be a volume slot receiver. The other guy, works for Santa. He's basically a football elf. There's a pretty clear alpha profile on that team, and that was Nico Collins. So even if you stripped away the profiles, if you didn't look at the fact that he's 6'4", 215 with one of the best yards per route run last year, if you just went on principle of this is an offense I want exposure to, and I'm willing to overpay for all the pieces, knowing that there's a chance that any one of these guys really hits this year and hits in a nuclear way, it's worth the 3rd round pick. Doing the in aggregate math that these guys don't add up to what CJ Stroud is delivering, that was a total fallacy that I believe I discussed and promoted. That was based on an underpinning of just not believing in Nico Collins. There was some bias involved, where I was just looking for confirmation, looking for something to confirm my priors on Nico Collins, that I didn't trust the 3rd-year breakout. Fundamentally, that was my bias. I had this fundamental bias against the 3rd-year breakout, which then led me into this fallacy, this projection fallacy, which then resulted in a below average exposure in best ball to Nico Collins. And that was wrong. And you might say, well, as of right now, Diggs is outscoring Nico Collins. You were right, Podfather. You said Diggs is a better value than Nico Collins. It's not about that, man. Who fucking cares about injuries? It's about the process. The process was wrong, even if you get the right result. And I'm here to admit when the process was bad, and the process with Nico Collins was bad. Okay,
Matt, we've got about 60 questions to get through in about 40 minutes. So we appreciate the process results. The process results evaluation. I had a question.
We want to teach people how to fish and also put fish on the table.
Look at this guy. This guy's I love it. I'm going to use that line. But Matt, they're asking, I had a question in the YouTube chat. Give somebody a TV show that's good to watch right now. What's the last TV show you have enjoyed?
I have not watched a lot of I know that there's great TV out there because everyone I talk to always has recommendations for me on a TV show, and it's always a different show. It's on Apple, it's on Netflix, it's on Hulu, and I'm like, wow, this what a great time to be alive, to be a television watcher, a television connoisseur. I actually don't have a lot of time to watch TV. I have been, in the moments, the 10-minute increments that I can maybe sit down and not be here talking on a microphone or grinding stats or whatever it is. I've been watching these poker streams lately. That's what I've been doing. That's not something I'm going to recommend. It's like a very, it's fantasy adjacent. So it's just me being all in on my nerddom.
Okay.
Back in the off season, when I actually had a life and I could sit down with some popcorn and watch a television show, my favorite television show is on Hulu. It is called Alone. They put people out into the woods and they say you have 10 items, an axe, a net, a flint, fire starter, and how many days can you survive by yourself just by building a fishing pole and doing all these things. I fucking love that show. And at a very deep, visceral level, I love that show. I love the creators. It's such a level where I thought about just reaching out to the producers of the show and just thanking them for having the idea to do it and pulling it off and getting the funding for it, because I'm so appreciative that it exists.
You should go on it. Go on it.
I can't believe that show exists. It's so good. And there's never been any scandals like in these other shows like it. There's always been scandals that actually the guy was staying in a hotel when the cameras weren't rolling. It's legit. It is the legit outdoors show. If you like outdoor survival show, there's this show, and every other show is not even in the same universe as Alone. Alone is so good. And the upside is my wife hates it.
Okay. Before I answer, give you a TV show. Tom Goswine changed his profile pic. Tom, you look great in the pic.
This is a great. I love this new photo from Tom.
Great, Tom. Great photo.
Is great.
You should have gone with that one before.
Look at Tommy.
And I will say,
upgrade button for Tommy.
Drake May versus Kirk Cousins.
Tommy G. Wasn't there a fantasy analyst named Tommy G who was really famous?
I don't remember.
Tommy G. Is anyone in the chat? Was there a Tommy G at some point?
I will go with. Wasn't he the guy that did it was like political too, or something
probably
like that?
Awful.
Yeah.
He's probably terrible analyst.
This
as
guy
most of them are.
Yeah, there's not a lot.
A guy named Tommy G is probably bad. But I think I remember a Tommy G, like a super alpha fantasy analyst guy, and I'm sure he was just dreadful.
Okay, so Tom gets another question because he changed his profile pic. Kirk Cousins, though, even though we love Drake May, you're riding the Matt. You got to do it. You can't lead him down this path. We're going, dude. Kirk Cousins, and also Seattle.
Can I ask another question? See, this is why I like the Reddit questions.
Okay, let's go Reddit.
These quarterback start sits are gross. Really, with the quarterback start sits, really. Isn't it kind of obvious? You look at the game scenario, go look at the over-under and just pick based on that. Is the guy a Russian quarterback? Yes or no? If yes, look at the over-under on the game. And then that's pretty much it. I'm telling you, based on the over-under, Falcons are at home on turf. The implied points are like 27, 28 implied points. It's amazing. Like, you got to go Kirk Cousins. It overrides the nominal rushing you're going to get from Drake May. So I just answered the goddamn question. I wasn't even trying to answer the question, but I couldn't help it.
Shout out to Right Next Time. I was actually going to say this for the shows. I like Matt, don't get to watch as much shows during the season because Matt and I are basically like, you 7 days a week, basically fantasy football right
I'm
now.
A slave.
Yeah. And it's also
like, when the NFL season starts, I'm like, 4 months a slave. Here we go.
I write 4 articles as well. So like when I'm in front of a TV, sometimes it'll be like a game on, but I'm writing an article. So you can't really watch TV while you're writing, but you can also like take in like a soccer game or a football game or basketball. But Penguin, I have seen Penguin. It's phenomenal. I'm not caught up though. and I'll say Tulsa King.
Is this an origin story? Is this a Batman origin story thing?
It's terrific.
Is that what it is, though? I have no idea what it is. I'm guessing it's a Batman origin story.
It's the Batman most recent Robert Pattinson. It's Colin Farrell played the Penguin in the Batman movie, and the Penguin in this iteration of the Batman universe is like a mob boss, kind of. Not quite a boss, but he's like a captain maybe in the mob, knockaround guy, button man. But he's powerful enough, and it's terrific. Great cast.
So
great
I will watch it, and I will explain why I'm going to watch it. There's all these superhero movies, right? There's all these superheroes. There's all these comic books. There's all these everything, right? And most of the Marvel ones are just better than the DC comics. Okay, mostly.
The Batman, though, was great, Matt. You got to say the Robert Pattinson Batman was great.
Excuse me, Theo. Election's a few days away. Excuse me.
We got to go rapid fire.
I know, but hold on. Batman is not a superhero. Batman is a real guy. The Batman narrative, the Batman story arc, the Batman premise, all the Batman material that we have is leaps and bounds better than anything else in the superhero genre. And so if it's Batman, I'm interested. If it's some other superhero, that got near something that was radioactive and then got some Batman, at the end of the day, he's just a guy who just has cool gadgets, and he gets there with guile and athleticism. Like, if
Matt,
we had a player profiler that was not no performance enhancing, things from outer space, Batman is the GOAT, dude. Batman, that's where I'm at. So if you want to give me origin story on like Thor, kiss my ass. If you want to give me an origin story on Penguin,
Thor.
I'm in.
Everybody likes Thor. Okay. Mark G in the chat, 12-team Superflex. And Trey, I see your comment on YouTube. Ask your question again, Trey, and I'm going to get to it because we're trying to answer as many questions. Matt's going a little off the rails here.
Oh, blank man. This guy has blank man. Okay. Yes, Jamie, excuse me. Jamie, he's right. Blank man's the other one. Blank man and Batman.
Okay. Mark G, 12-team Superflex. Would he trade Michael Penix, Audric Estime, dynasty question, we love these, and a 2025 third for DeAndre Swift and Josh Downs? Or let's
stop there.
Okay,
absolutely not. If you do that, I will reach through this computer and strangle you.
On my shows, you're allowed to ask double questions, but Matt is has very hard principles.
If you trade Penix right now, if you trade him away in Superflex, that is the donk move of the donk moves. I can't think of trading Penix is the donkiest of donk moves. I can't think of a donkier move.
It is. I think you have to go team context here, though, Matt, because if you have a team that is one player away, I think Downs is incredibly underrated right now.
You're kicking yourself.
You will. And
if you want to, you're signing up for years of pain thinking about, I could have had Penix. Instead, I got Josh Downs tethered to Anthony Richardson for a career. Get out of here.
I'll say the argument for Matt is actually like, even if you got to wait 18 months for this, what we see with Kirk Cousins, imagine having that in your lineup for 6 years with Michael Penix. That offense works. Drake London works. Bijan Robinson works. So, yeah, Mark, I think that we're going to go pragmatic, and we will lean with the Podfather there.
Oh, and then what happens when Swift loses his job to Roschon? You're going to be you're signing up for it's just pain. It's a big pain trade. Don't do it.
Okay, we're going to go back to Reddit here. Let's go. A lot of people angry that I'm not keeping the show moving. Guys, sorry. We're trying our best here. Let's get back to it here. Gosh, now all the questions
is the best show we've done all year.
Hey guys, let us know if you want Matt and I to do AMAs here.
Leave a comment. Leave a comment on the show on YouTube if you want us to shut this down and never do it because we can't stay on topic. It's an inefficient show. We talk about too many things that are outside of football. Let us know, and we will absolutely listen to you. And we may never do the show again.
Let us know,
or go in the comments and say, actually, I like how you sprinkled in football takes with non-football takes, and this actually was very entertaining, but also helpful and informative. Keep doing it. We'll do that too.
Okay, so Matt, he's got Jordan Love and Kyler Murray. You still stick with your hold tight for Penix? Because with Kyler Murray and Jordan Love, to get a Swift and to get a Josh Downs might help, but I still think it's probably hold. Yeah.
Well, Murray is risky anyway. Murray is having Kyler Murray is all the more reason to have a third quarterback in Superflex.
Okay, so guys, some people love how the show's gone off the rails. Some people are getting very upset. Let's take a couple more questions here. I'm going to give actually a YouTube question because our chat is lit. Hit the like button if you want us to do another one of these again. Matt is vicious. Yeah, Matt, they're really annoyed by your mean comment to Tom earlier. Okay, so we're back
Wait, what did I do to Tom?
You made fun of his haircut. You caused the guy to change his picture.
It was a great upgrade.
It was an upgrade. So, Matt, if anything,
what do you mean?
You life coached him, but you went negative with it. Could have gone positive. Hey, maybe change your picture.
Is that where we're at now?
Shout out to Jay Kurt. Jay Kurt in the chat. Nice picture. Jay at his wedding. Maybe he looks like Hawaii, maybe South Florida in the picture. Jay,
you do realize that here, just so you know, I have someone sent me a Mr. Bean bobblehead because they said I look like Mr. Bean, who is universally regarded as ugly. So if anyone wants to talk about, you need to only have positive reviews of how people look. Well, it starts with the audience. Okay. So from Mr. Bean to you, well, we'll do some critiquing of haircuts and chins and all kinds of whatever we want because of this right here.
Jay Kurt's question: is Jerome Ford a drop in redraft now for a potential league winner like Blake Corum / Jalen Wright? I think he is, because Jerome Ford is banged up now, and now I get Nick Chubb back. So this is at a minimum, this is a committee backfield in a bad offense. Where with Blake Corum, Jalen Wright, if I get an injury in front of Blake Corum, like Blake Corum, I write about him every week now in the waiver wire column because he's available in like 80% of leagues. But Kyron Williams is giving you fantastic production. But if Kyron misses time, Blake Corum is immediately like a top 15 play at the running back position. Sean McVay, RB1, continue to produce, and Blake Corum can handle volume. Jalen Wright's a little different, but
I'll just say this. This is the perfect question because Ford has very limited upside. There's nothing there. Look at the team context. Just we talked about with Audric Estime. He's basically Audric Estime. The Browns offense and the Broncos offense are similar. There's just nothing there. There's nothing there to hold on to. What do you get? What do you think your upside is? What are your contingent equity into future weeks and future potential winnings having Jerome Ford? Almost negligible. Whereas a Corum or a Wright, these are league winners. The probability that either of them are league winners is below 50%, but you need to have these lever pulls for later in the season. Dump Jerome Ford, dump players on offenses that can't help you in situations where it's super fringy that they could ever really seize a meaningful role. Jerome Ford had his time. It's also one of those things where, guys have their moment, but then when the moment's pass and you dump them.
Okay. Let's take one more, and then let's get a couple more Reddit questions in. Podfather, there we go. This is a Harry Snowman. Podfather doesn't look like Mr. Bean, but he may have Eugene Levy's eyebrows of Schitt's Creek and American Pie fame. Matt, he's very complimentary of your eyebrows.
I have very unmanageable, crazy, thick eyebrows that need to be managed. I need to have a different headshot that minimizes them. We need to go to Photoshop. I need to go to laser hair or whatever it is. They're ugly. They're terrible. They're unmanageable. I agree with that. I'm here for the negativity. Please bring on the negativity. I'm here for it. Please.
People like the negativity. I had a couple people saying
there's people in the chat saying that they don't like anything negative. Oh, we don't like it negative. Oh, it needs to be all positive.
Well, you're not going to,
unless we're talking about the athletes that we are, basing our whole game around. Then in that case, hate them, right? go after them. Go after the guys that are putting their health and mental function at risk. But the guys in the chat, right, and the guys that are hosting the show, they need to be protected from negativity.
Okay, so Adam Siegel and we're going to get to everybody who's put their question in Reddit. We're going to get to all of those, but I want to rip through a couple more YouTube questions because really appreciate the chat being so lit on YouTube. Matt, we might do another AMA just on YouTube for our YouTube audience. Really, really active chat today, and a lot of people watching this. Adam Siegel, send Tyreek Hill for Kyron Williams full PPR. Yes, I am sending Tyreek Hill for Kyron Williams because we have a lack of clarity on when Tua Tagovailoa comes back. A couple weeks back, I remember writing about in my waiver wire column and a couple other articles I write saying that Tua Tagovailoa is going to be back week 8 because that was the timeline we were told. Now, Mike McDaniel has walked that back. So I don't know when Tua is coming back. So I can get a running back who's getting 20 points per game versus a wide receiver in a dysfunctional offense, despite him being Tyreek Hill. I'm making that trade every time. Here's one for you, Matt, and this is one that's going to cause you pain. Koa X Kai, who's also an active participant in our shows. We appreciate you, Koa. Would you rather stash basically one of your favorite players of all time, Roschon Johnson, Emmanuel Wilson, or Vidal Sassoon, your new favorite?
My new
and I will take Emmanuel Wilson out of the equation because Matt's not going to say Emmanuel Wilson, even though quality offense.
Can I stack rank him right now?
You got to pick one.
I know. Drum roll, please. Drum roll, everybody. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Number 1, Vidal Sassoon.
It's Vidal Sassoon.
The upside of becoming the primary back and a primary back with pass catching, receiving upside. Look at that wheel route last week. Oh my God. Right? J.K. Dobbins is the ticking time bomb running back, given all of his lower body injuries the last few years. Vidal Sassoon has now established himself as the trusted next man up in Los Angeles with the best young offensive line in the sport with a run-first coach. It's all about Vidal Sassoon. You have to stash him. If he's available, get him. Don't even think about dropping him. Then Roschon Johnson, then Emmanuel, whoever the hell.
Okay, so I'll say Matt is correct. It's Kamani Vidal. And Matt, you've been accused of using performance-enhancing drugs.
I know.
You've been accused of being on Adderall. Can you get mail order Adderall?
No, I don't. I've never taken Adderall in my life.
No.
We did, though. I had a top 10 takeaway show recently. It was, I think, a week and a half ago, where my wife did switch the coffee from half calf to full calf, and I didn't know. And I was wired.
Yeah, Matt surprisingly does not have as high a caffeine tolerance as you would think. You would think that Matt, like the Podfather, all hyped, would have a strong caffeine tolerance, but it's not really as good as you would think. Surprising, guys. Matt is not a massive coffee drinker. I handle a lot of caffeine. That's sort of my weapon of choice throughout the season. Cold brew, espresso, you name it, something to get me going. Leo L. Theo.
I do drink unicorn blood, though.
There you go.
That's how I do it.
Leo L. Specifically, this question is for me. Doesn't want your opinion, Matt. Says Theo. Olave or Juju rest of season? I'm going to go.
You know what the L stands for in Theo L, right?
Leo L. Leo L.
No, you know what the L stands for.
What does it stand for? Okay. So we will go Olave there. Rashid Shaheed, the injury there crushes the Saints. So when Chris Olave comes back, expect for him to be heavily utilized. He's going to be kind of the only show in town with guys like Tipton, guys like Bub Means, guys like Jawan Johnson. Like Matt said, this is a tough one. You also have Spencer Rattler, where the younger quarterback is going to really have kind of tunnel vision for Olave when he comes back, especially with Shaheed being out. Really devastating injury. Shaheed was fantastic this year. Tom Gosween says that we should be doing more of these AMAs. I think we're going to have to, Matt. I think we'll do a YouTube-only AMA.
This was the guy that you guys were all caping up for and trying to protect from the negativity, and now he's saying we need more of these.
He loves it.
Listen to the chat. Stop being so sensitive. Tom knows what it's. I like Tom, man. Tom is anti-fragile. I love that.
Surratt AI, great picture from Surratt. He's got a beard, but he's also wearing a fake like 1920s mustache. Just a great pick.
I
Surratt,
should get
you're
fake eyebrows.
a great. Well, some people think they're fake now, Matt.
I know.
So you
That's why I said
just
that.
come with like
I've heard that.
comically
Yes, they're
larger
implant.
and
I'm
larger.
using performance enhancing eyebrows.
Okay, so Surratt says loves the show. We appreciate that, Surratt. And anybody watching right now, one way to support our YouTube channel is hit the subscribe button. I know some people come on specifically for shows and don't subscribe. It helps us grow the channel and it costs you nothing. No better way of thanking us for this sort of free programming than subscribing to our shows, hitting the like buttons, and like you guys are doing, being active in the chat. We really appreciate that. Matt and I are putting a lot of effort into our YouTube channel, so hopefully you guys are enjoying that. But Surratt says
others are putting a lot of effort into it.
well, we're not.
You're putting
inactive.
a ton of effort into it.
You're helping, Matt. You're helping. So Chase Brown or T. Higgins? I would say I'm going T. Higgins, even though we're enthusiastic about Chase Brown. Matt, I think T. Higgins top 15 wide receiver rest of the season. And Matt,
look at the situation that we have in Cincinnati. They don't have a running game. They just have Chase Brown, who's a slasher, and he's getting better and better in the passing game. It's great, but this is a team that's going to have to throw the ball. We're going to have Joe Burrow is going to have another 500-yard game at some point, and both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are going to be getting there week after week after week after week. I'm so excited for T. Higgins, especially. T. Higgins is going to get a payday like we've never seen.
Big time.
Like we've never seen, because the Bengals are out, right? The Bengals are in this unique situation where they're the most frugal franchise in the sport. They can't afford to bring back a beta receiver to their alpha in Jamar Chase plus pay Joe Burrow. So he's going to hit the open market with a proper alpha profile that these NFL GMs love. It's going to be, if you thought that Christian Kirk once upon a time got overpaid, just wait.
Calvin Ridley this past offseason, much older than T. Higgins is like 25. T. Higgins came in the league young, and he's been very successful. So I agree with you completely. This is a good one, and Jamie does not want my opinion. It's specifically for Matt. Dalton Kincaid or David Njoku for the rest of the season.
How smart is our audience, man?
They're the best.
They would know how to troll other people in the chat, like in real time, just like this. Jamie, such a stud. Love it. The answer is Njoku, just based on the law of the conservation of targets. One team got Amari Cooper. One team lost Amari Cooper. Njoku's more athletic. Njoku's more proven than even Dalton Kincaid. And I think that of all the tight ends that are out there right now, Njoku would be the tight end that I'm trying to trade for in all formats.
Yeah, I love it. And I
mean, obviously you want Brock Bowers, but good luck getting him. And Njoku's actually attainable. David Njoku.
If you want to know about David Njoku, our takes on Amari Cooper, our takes on Devontae Adams, our takes on really all the trade fallout from the two big trades, Matt and I are actually going to host Wake and Take tomorrow morning. Jason Allwine turns 49 tomorrow. You wouldn't know it, but Jason turns 49, so he's taking the day off. Happy birthday to Jason Allwine. Last question from YouTube here.
That's going to be a thing where you're not even allowed to see people's age anymore, because that's going to be giving away too much information. That's going to be like
violation?
That's going to be the new doxing at some point.
Did I dox Jason? I apologize, Jason.
No, I'm saying not yet, but just give these people online a few more years, and then it'll be impossible to say anything.
Yeah, guys are shocked by that age. I might be 50 this year. I'm not sure.
He's getting up there.
Yeah, Jacob, older than the Podfather. You would never know. Jacob Cushing says, I've got Breece Hall, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Austin Eckler, Jonathan Brooks, and Ramondre. Which two would you covet the most? So Breece Hall that's the one I would covet the most. And then how do we rank the rest of them? Very interesting question here.
I think it's a terrible question. It really is. I mean, I appreciate Jacob Cushing a lot. But close to Jacob Cowing, by the way, one of the most irrelevant wide receivers that we've seen in the year, all year. I mean, Jonathan Brooks is the best of these guys. He actually could be the next Breece Hall next year. But it is, I think this is a good jumping off point to talk about Chuba Hubbard, in that every time that they mention Jonathan Brooks, it's in the context of pushing back his go live date, pushing it back, pushing it back. So Chuba Hubbard's been one of the great buy lows, one of the great, late round running back ads, and continues to be underrated. Chuba Hubbard also going to get paid next year. Chuba's going to go get a job somewhere. That is actually Chuba's a very sneaky dynasty ad. If you're in trade talks and someone has Chuba, throw him in.
I will say that that of these running backs, there's some really interesting ones. Obviously, obviously an injury ahead of him, Bucky Irving would have value. Chase Brown, we talked about how he's ascending. But I'll say that one running back that I think is sneaky, though, if this Patriots offense takes off with Drake May, Mondre could be really, really a nice player to have on your roster for the rest of the season. I have some Mondre, and you sort of were like, it was like supposed to be the Gibson takeover. He has that really strong game when a lot of people's benches. But I think Mondre in a Drake May offense, especially because Mondre also has the contract insulation, Matt, where they extended him before the season. They want Mondre to play with Drake May. He takes pressure off of Drake May. He's efficient as a runner, and he can catch the ball. So I'll go Mondre.
Yeah.
We're going to go one more question on YouTube, and then Matt and I are going to go. We'll just take this one. They're adding a dynasty context to your David Njoku for Kincaid. Now this one becomes interesting. In dynasty, David Njoku, I believe, is 28, and that's without looking at player profiler. Somebody get in the chat, let me know if I'm incorrect on that. I think Njoku is 28 years old versus Dalton Kincaid, who's like 24 years old. I will say that in dynasty, I'm still going to go with Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid is attached to Josh Allen. We have way more question marks about where Cleveland's offense is heading. We have question marks about who the coach will be in Cleveland next year. With Buffalo, it's the stability, and it's Dalton Kincaid. We saw him have like 5 15-plus point weeks last year with Josh Allen. We know he can play. Njoku does give you that ceiling right now if he goes nuclear with the target share. But I'm going Dalton Kincaid in Dynasty, and I think pretty easily. Where you at, Matt?
Dalton Kincaid, I don't think that's a really good question. I'm back on Reddit. I want to give some bonus takes from Reddit. I want to take some of these questions.
Okay. Are you answering this one or let me just, because I want to refresh it. One thing on the Reddit, guys, if you're in there, it's an interesting app because if Matt writes something, I don't see it until I hit refresh. So I don't want to double answer. Which one are you taking, Matt?
Is it worth trading Tony Pollard for Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Yes, absolutely. It's worth.
Whoa! In seasonal leagues, really?
Well, the argument being, if Tyjae Spears is really banged up and Tony Pollard maintains this sort of role, then Tony Pollard can give us low end RB1 production. I understand that, but I think over the second half of the season,
the answer is Pollard. Pollard is going to finish the year with more fantasy points than Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. is terrifying right now.
So I will say that I would go Marvin Harrison Jr. in this one, and I think that that's going to be a close one, Matt. I think Tony Pollard, I would bet, finishes closer to RB18 than he does RB11, and I think at the end of the day, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to give you that wide receiver 20, wide receiver 22 finish. I think that he's going to be strong over the end of the season. He'll finish as a wide receiver too. So we are butting heads on that one.
So we're disagreeing there. Okay, would you start Brian Robinson this week or Terry McLaurin in PPR?
Oh, gosh, McLaurin is just on such a efficiency.
McLaurin, scary Terry, baby.
And it's Carolina, too. Carolina's given up all these. So Carolina has given up so much running back production, though, is the argument. I think they've given up like something insane, Matt. I think they've given up 9 RB1 and RB2 weeks combined. Like running backs.
But Eckler is Eckler healthy this week? He is.
Eckler's going to be good to go. But
Eckler's good to go, so there's going to be a split. It's going to be,
I'll go McLaurin.
B-Rob's going to have touchdown equity for sure, but the upside that you get, especially in DraftKings, this is a DraftKings question. You're going to want to play Scary Terry this week on DraftKings. Terry McLaurin is my guy. Like when our season rankings were updated this week, that was the one where I was like, whatever it takes, find a way to make sure that we're as bullish as possible on Terry McLaurin. I think that he's just scratched the surface this year of what he can do in this offense. Every time I look up, the game total is like 54 points. Not quite 54, close enough. And there's no target competition at all. Who's their tight end? That's what I thought. Who's their wide receiver too? That's what I thought.
Okay, we let the cat's out of the bag. Jason is not 49 years old. We've been called out, Matt. My joke does not stick. We'll take, you know what? Let's take one more. There's so many comments right here.
We can't even have a joke.
We love it.
We can't even have a joke about age. They won't let it happen. That you can't just, even if there's a maybe that he might feel a little ashamed. We're saying he's 49, even everyone knows it's a joke. He's clearly not 49. And yet it's so earnest. They're so earnest.
Here's a fun one.
And
Austin Gibbons.
If you're too earnest, you can get trolled. That's the danger. That's the danger.
Austin Gibbons.
This comes full circle. The boomers and the Gen Zers, they've come full circle.
I love the use of the word earnest. Earnest, just great use of
no, I know, but he doesn't realize it's a fucking joke.
Okay, let's go with 49. This one. Austin Gibbons. It was a great joke. It was a great joke. Happy 51st birthday to Jason Allwine.
Sorry.
Austin Gibbons. Trade Breece Hall for Chris Godwin, who is in contention right now for he's close to the top of the wide receiver scoring right now, and he's in a great offense. I'll say Liam Cohen, one of my favorite offensive coordinators. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are kind of like a must-see TV right now, and I get Travis Kelce, but I'm giving up a running back who is sort of, where are we putting Breece Hall rest of the season, guys? I'll say with the Devontae Adams addition, Breece Hall's somewhere like around RB5, RB6 level, and he's got upside now in that offense. This is a tough one, Matt. This is a really, really tough one. Which way are you going? I wish we knew context for the roster, but let's say this is a standard Yahoo or ESPN league.
I always want the best player in the deal. But in this case, I'm not sure who that is.
I think I'm taking the package, and I hate doing it. You know me, Matt. I am somewhat of an ageist in fantasy football. I love getting younger players, but I think it's Chris Godwin and Travis Kelce, and I think that's it. And I'll figure out running back.
Let's talk about this for a second, because we know what Kelce is at this point. There's no Rashee Rice that improves his, weekly projection and range of outcomes. Godwin's looking like a top 5 fantasy receiver. There's nothing that would suggest that's going to change.
It's bye-bye Breece.
You think Jalen McMillan is going to change this? Do you think that suddenly Mike Evans is going to turn 26 and stop being 30 years old? No. Like, I think that Godwin could just outscore Breece Hall on his own. And while I like what I've seen so far in terms of the one game with the new coaching staff, it's a big deal, man. Coaching doesn't matter almost ever.
It does.
But when you have a new coaching staff and you see a dramatic change in the touch distribution based on their appreciation of a player versus the last coaching staff, that's when the regime can really matter and make a difference. So I'm very bullish on Hall with this new coaching staff and the additional touchdown equity that Devontae Adams brings to the table with more sustained drives, higher scoring offense. I'm very encouraged, and I could see 20 fantasy points a game coming for the rest of the year from Breece Hall. But what does it matter when Godwin's giving you 21 fantasy points a game? What does it matter when, you have most formats, you're starting more receivers than you are running backs? And in most teams, if this guy's even considering this deal, he's probably struggling at tight end, and it's hard to find more just solid production, even if it isn't like the spike weeks we were accustomed to in previous years. it is nice to just get Kelley and not have to worry about tight end.
It's a top 5 tight end and a top 10 wide receiver, even if Godwin takes a step back based on the usage with Liam Cohen. They're using him like he's Cooper Kupp, like peak Cooper Kupp type usage. Shout out to Kevo. He's also an ageist in fantasy football.
I think you do that deal. And then whoever you have on the bench, just be sure to double down on all the running backs we've talked about. As
100%.
long as you do that deal and you stockpile Corum, Vidal, Wright, all those max upside running backs on your bench, then you're betting on yourself. You're locking in the production at wide receiver and tight end, and you're saying, I'm going to bet on myself that I can get elite production from the running back position with the right stash at the right time. Ray Davis, whoever it is, get him on your bench for the fantasy playoffs, and then you're going to look up and be like, oh, wow, I'm getting Breece Hall level production from Jalen Wright or Kamani Vidal, and I also have Kelley, and I also have Godwin. So that's the case for doing that trade.
So we are going to wrap this up. We've got to get to the Reddit questions. This was so much fun. Matt, what do you have coming up? Tell everybody again when are you doing the show this weekend?
Starter stream this Sunday. I'm going to attempt. This is going to be tough, but we've got an early soccer match in New London. It's a long drive. My daughter's been now a starter. She's only worked 3 years to get to this point. So I am so all in supporting her. And that might mean setting my alarm and doing a 7 a.m. starter sit show on the Player Profiler channel. All the more reason to subscribe. You never know when you might find a show you want. We have 32 Beat Writers has a show. We've got Dynasty shows. We've got so many different types of shows. You subscribe, you see them in your feed, you can pick and choose.
Yeah, no, we've really built up a very strong network of shows. Make sure you check out Sleepers, Streamers, and Stashes. I've been dropping that usually on Saturdays. That's been dropping sometimes on Fridays. Check out that in your pod feed as well. Make sure you're subscribed to our Player Profiler YouTube network. Make sure you're subscribed to all of our podcasts. That helps us out a lot. It costs you nothing. And yeah, stick with us all season long. Matt and I will be back. Let us know in the comments here if you want us to do another YouTube-only AMA. And a shout-out to Fantasy Football Reddit for having us involved with so many of their things over the years. And that's another resource. If you're not on Fantasy Reddit, you find some great stuff over there. I know, Matt, if I put like an article up there, if people don't like it, they let you know. But there's some very, very knowledgeable people over there. And
there's no negativity on Reddit.
Oh, there's some negativity.
I've
you would love it.
I've never seen negativity on Reddit. That's never happened.
100%.
No,
everybody,
we're negative on this show at all. So if we say anything about someone's haircut, well, we get absolutely eviscerated. There's no tolerance for negativity on Reddit.
Matt and I are also hosting Wake and Take tomorrow morning right here on Player Profiler YouTube. This has been a lot of fun. For the Podfather, I'm Theo Gremminger, and we will see you soon.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.